Good morning. This is Jason Moss from the Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and the Manufacturing News Network. We're really excited to have three great partners with us on the call today. Mr. Randy Brunson from Centurion Advisory Group, Laura Matajewski from H.L. Big Gross Collins, and Mr. Benny Santaroma from the University of Georgia, the Small Business Development Center. We're going to be talking today, the focus of the topic, the conversation today is going to be all around finance and the things that we as manufacturers in the manufacturing industry need to be looking at specifically to make sure we've got all of our affairs in order as it relates to finance. We're going to be talking at a super high level about investments and retirement. What are the things that we can do to make sure that we prepare our business and our books and our employees for the changes that we're facing as it relates again to how the coronavirus is impacting all of business. And Laura is going to share some information. Both Randy and Laura are going to share some information on the CARES Act and how that impacts us all differently. This is a very fluid conversation. Just so you know, we are recording these calls. We want to make sure that all of the folks that maybe not be able to get on the call today will be able to circle back at and listen to it. But we're getting new advisement every day as it relates to the CARES Act. So we're just want to make sure that we keep you up to date as current of information as available. So with that, I'm going to hop off. I'm going to mute my line here, and I want to bring on Mr. Randy Brunson. If you would just tell us name, company, what your role is there, just a little bit about your background, and I know we've been talking about several things that you're going to cover. So take it away, Randy.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that introduction. Again, the name is Randy. The last name is Brunson. The firm is Centurion Advisory Group. We are typically described as an independent, fee-only wealth management firm. That's our specialty. We help clients by leading, planning, guiding, listing, planning, and guiding. And a lot of our work revolves around tax planning, charitable gift planning, and investment management. So that's a bit about us. In terms of the CARES Act and what's going on in the markets, the public equities markets just wrapped up their worst quarter in decades, okay? Action steps to take at the moment are, number one, not to sell, okay? So if you have any money in a retirement plan or personal funds set aside that are invested in the public markets, our first and best recommendation is simply not to sell anything. If you have funds that are being automatically invested through a retirement plan or some other type of investment plan, continue to do that. And in fact, what we are encouraging our clients to do is to increase the amount of money that they are setting aside on a consistent basis. What we're watching is some of our wealthiest clients are pulling funds out of money market accounts and putting them to work in the equities markets, okay? Not wholesale, not 7 figures at a time, but they are consistently setting money aside into the equities markets. Historically, equities markets always rebound. This will be no exception. In terms of the CARES Act, one recommendation for all business owners is to apply for what is referred to as a Paycheck Protection Plan, or it goes by several names. The acronym is PPP, all right? It is available to all companies with fewer than 500 employees. If it's a restaurant group, 500 employees per location. Laura and Benny can give you an enormous number of details. I can as well, but this isn't the time for that. There's a lot of information and it's very complex. So that's a short summary. I'm not given to projecting what's going to happen next, okay? Sir John Templeton, the founder of the Templeton Funds, was once asked by a journalist for an observation or a quote regarding the market. And this is a gentleman that was a billionaire at the time of his death because he had mastered the art of investing well and helping others do that. He was a billionaire at the time of his death, and in the last years of his life, gave away 90% of his income, okay? So very charitably inclined. His quote about the market was, the market goes up, the market goes down. So that's my observation for the day about the public markets. In terms of what may be opportunities going forward, we believe that over the next 2 to 3 years, there will be significant opportunities in real estate. Just watching what's going on. Most of you are working from home. Many employers will reconfigure how people work to the extent that the demand for commercial real estate is going to lighten up. And many commercial property owners leverage as much as they can. 90% loan to value, never a good plan, never a good plan, okay? But they do, and so some of them, I believe that some of those property owners are going to need to sell to get out from under the debt load, and that those with cash will be able to step into scenarios where they can work with a bank and the current owner and acquire properties at a very reasonable price compared to rent rolls and net income. That's just a personal observation watching what's going on. There will be other changes that really aren't apparent just now. And then, of course, the CARES Act, one of the things to watch out for is something called the law of unintended consequences. There will be all kinds of outcomes from the CARES Act that are positive in some respects, and then there will be a number that we look at and say, well, that shouldn't have happened, but it's called the law of unintended consequences is what we refer to as. So that's a short summary. I don't know. I'll be glad to answer questions. I'll post my email address up here on the chat box if some of you have questions or want to email questions to us or anything like that. So, Jason, what else can I share that makes sense?
Yeah, Randy, I really do appreciate that. You know, the insights about the commercial. I know that all of us are having experienced a whole new normal. I know that you know, we do tons and tons of events and making this transition into the digital world. Hey, that's what we get to do. And I don't know that you and I spoke last night, and I agree 100%. It's never going to go back to what the old normal was. You know, I mean, when we figured out that, you know, so many of us can work from home, work differently. I hadn't even thought about that. I mean, that was a really unique perspective, that how much it's going to change the way that we do business and the in the processes. Right now, I think all of us, that's really the interesting piece that I keep seeing and talking to executive leaders is, you know, right now we're all so focused on surviving this. What is the next step? What are we going to do in the next 15 minutes? You know, I mean, if we could plan to the end of the day, man, that's fantastic. But making it to the next 15 minutes, we're good. But trying to take a step back, and I love your perspective is, okay, so now what's the next step, and how can we prepare for the future, and what opportunities are going to be there? Because anytime that there's a challenge, there's an opportunity. So those are some of the things I was thinking.
Yeah, let me tell you what I am observing. Okay. Here's what I'm observing, and I will admit that I probably live in a bubble and I work in a bubble because of the clients that we serve. But for 40 years, we have taught 5 core principles of handling cash flow. These are not fancy, they're not cool, they're not exotic. There's nothing about it that's like, you know, headline grabbing. They work, okay? Let me share them with you. Make a choice to spend less than you make. The underlying assumption there is you actually know what you spent, okay? Spend less than you make. Always, always, always have a reserve. We simply don't know what's going to happen. None of us could have predicted our current situation 6 or 8 weeks ago. Always have dry powder. Always have cash in the bank. Always have cash in the lockbox or at home, all right? Number 3, avoid debt like the virus, okay? You know how we're being instructed like to stay away, don't kiss strangers, wash your hands, you know, watch, eat, those kinds of things.
I missed that kissing stranger part, but hey, we'll circle back around to that in a minute.
So treat debt just the way that you're treating the virus, okay? Number 4, make and implement long-term plans. That requires thought, it requires engagement, it requires silence, it requires stillness. And this is the next 6 weeks are a great time to exercise those those gifts and habits. Number 5, choose to be generous with your time, your talent, and your treasure. All right. So those are the 5 core principles. Here's what we are watching. Okay. All of us have relatives who right now are struggling. They've been laid off, their hours have been cut. They're reaching out, hey, can you spot me $200, $2,000? It's just, okay. That's always going to be the case. All right. What we are watching are the people, our clients, who have practiced those 5 principles for decades. Their business revenue is variable. Some is off 10 to 20%, one's off 75%, okay, because she works with restaurants. To a person, they are not worried. They are spending this time preparing for the other side of this. How do we improve our systems? How do we improve operations? Who are the people that we need to hire? Because what this is doing, what this economic environment is doing, is it's taking the marginal players out of the game. It's taking those that were unprepared out of the game, giving them the opportunity to create success in a different way. Okay. And so on the other side of this, those that are still standing, the opportunities will increase. So they are preparing for that. And then, of course, those who, in terms of investment, as I mentioned, there are a number that we know with 6 and 7 figures just sitting in money markets. And it's like, all right, now, you know, it's like Sam Zell and Warren Buffett. They've got billions, and so they're circling. It's like, man, what a great time to buy oil companies. And so where you and I might buy stock, they buy companies. All right. So you can prepare for if you're not prepared for this one, you can prepare for the next one by adopting those 5 habits. Nothing fancy about it. It just works. That's it for me, Jason.
Fantastic, Randy. I definitely appreciate that. You know, foundational principles, they never change. You know, that's one of the nice things I love. And again, this is, you guys are getting to kind of peek inside my world and my mind and my Rolodex. You know, I mean, through this process is I'm identifying and I'm reaching out to advisors that I trust, that I admire. I appreciate their input, and I need to get into the landscape business, I guess. But but our goal is to, again, share with you the best that we can bring to bear, share insights and share resources that we've got here. And again, thank you, Randy, for that. One piece I will give you, I mean, if you guys know me, you know I'm a reader, and one of the books that has really prepared us, actually, Laura, I'm going to pass this over to you, and hopefully by the time we get done with that, this lawn maintenance will be done, so I don't want to get everybody an earache. So Laura, take it from here.
All right, great. Good morning, everybody. Well, and thanks so much for sharing your insights, Randy. Really appreciate that. I think there's a lot of people with many questions out there right now. So basically what I'm working on right now and keeping me busy day and night and making a lot of unpredictability in the calendar, but so be it, is answering a lot of questions for my clients and for people that just need, have determined they need accounting assistance, financial advice, consulting. Under the new CARES Act, we did a pretty extensive webinar yesterday, our firm did on it, answered a good number of questions, did a lot of follow-ups. So my focus is just trying to help guide people through the process. We've basically kind of become bankers in a way, making sure our clients understand what's going on, what is the types of information you need to have together, what you should be doing proactively, as we're expecting still, as Jason said, things change day to day, but we're expecting that the application process for the PPP will be open tomorrow. And so the floodgates will open and people will be diving into there trying to get their applications in. So I'm not sure if anybody's got some questions right now, but I know I've answered quite a few on the types of payroll information that you need to make sure you're gathering together, going ahead and running your calculations and including that with your application. That's important because, the people on the other side from the SBA, and I love to hear more about what Benny's going to have to share. anything we can do to help them out, then that's going to speed the process up a bit there. So don't just throw a bunch of 941s and payroll records at them and then expect it's just going to magically happen. Do your work. We're trying to provide as much transparency as possible. And then of course, there's other options as well in there too, the EIDL loans and the immediate $10,000 grant that was available under that as well too. So there's just lots of different pieces that are moving around right now. So my biggest job is education and hopefully providing some clarity and transparency. I'm sure you all probably have some questions or, have heard some things that you're not certain of. And after this call, if you don't get a chance to get into the chat, my contact information is out there as the Cobb chapter director and of course on my firm's website as well too. So feel free to email me, reach out to me, and I'd be happy to help you in any way I can. So that's pretty much what we're kind of doing right now and trying to give some ease to businesses that are really trying to decide what they're going to do tomorrow, the next day, the next week, not so much through the end of the year, but through at least the next quarter.
Very good, Laura. I really appreciate that. Would you mind going over, again, the three primary tools that business owners have available? I think it's 10,000, the PPP, and then
Sure. Yeah. So the PPP, as I keep calling it, it's the Payroll Protection Program under the CARES Act. And I'm actually got my slides over here next to me from yesterday. Our shareholders, Ileana and Wayne, went through all of the pieces for this, as well as the other items from the unemployment and the payroll tax credit side. I think the biggest factor that anybody has to remember in this is, while this sounds too good to be true, it is true, but also remind yourself that when you're doing something like applying for the PPP program, you can also have applied for the EIDL loans. So PPP, EIDL, the grant under the EIDL, those are those three things. And then the other offsetting side is your payroll taxes and your opportunities for credits there. But you can't do one side and then also do the other, it quote unquote double dipping. So if it really sounds too good to be true, where you're doing the PPP and then you're also trying to do credits over here and stuff, stop and think about it. And that's why I'm here to kind of answer some of those, because there are things that cross over themselves where you can't get into that and think that you can take advantage of it from both angles. But you can apply for the PPP. Highly recommend you do it. It's essentially free money if you do everything right. What you're doing is you're effectively taking a calculation of 2.5 months worth of your payroll related costs. So that's your salaries, your state level taxes that you're paying, and you're taking that plus things like healthcare benefits as well to the employer side of that. If you're providing money into retirement benefit plans, you want to pick that up as well too. And you take that number that you come up with from the formula they have out there. It's fairly straightforward, and you multiply it by 2.5. And that is your magical number that you're going to apply for. The forms are out there under the SBA right now. I don't know if those are going to continue to change or not, but we have seen those, and those are pretty straightforward. A factor to remember under that, though, is if you have multiple ownership, and again, I don't want to steal anything from Benny from what he may have to share, owners that are 20% or greater, each of them has to certify under the application. So you have to get them, there's certifications on it that you check boxes, and it tells you, I'm certifying that this information is correct, that I'm eligible for this, etc. So that's where we're kind of giving some guidance there on that as well too, is banks are coming back and saying, have you asked, are you certain you're certified for this? And it's just a standard question that they're asking. There is a recommendation once you've applied for the loan, then to go ahead and probably earmark that money into a separate bank account, just because it's easier to track, because it's all about paperwork and tracking. So once you've done it and you filed for it, once they accept it, that's your loan origination date. And then 8 weeks from that period, you can go in and actually apply for your loan forgiveness. So it's all kind of laid out there. They're trying to make it as easy as possible. So we're just going to continue to disseminate the information. But you're able to apply through the PPP. you have the emergency disaster relief loan that has a small part to it, the $10,000 grant under there. And then you also have payroll tax credits as well too, which are pretty substantial on that to, again, free up cash flow. That's what it's all about.
That's perfect, Laura. That I definitely appreciate that. And all of us are in different spots in business. I looked at this. I'm as you know, I'm a lot smaller government kind of guy. I think we ought to have fire, police, and pretty much that's it for and roads. Outside of that, I'd be kind of paring that stuff back. But and I've been real cautious. We've never taken one penny of government funds in anything that we've ever done. And I've been a little bit hesitant. I'll just be very candid with you. One of the things though that I've reached out to several of my advisors and my coaches and said, guys, tell me a little bit about this. And the financial folks that I lean on for recommendations are, you probably want to go ahead and get started with this process, even though you think you might not need it. You may have enough runway to make it 6 months, and that's cool if you do, but we don't know how long this is going to be. So it makes sense. The resources are available to you. I was a little hesitant. I mean, especially when I went online, I got online and looked at the, SBA and looked at the little form, and it said can take up to 2.5 hours to complete this form. And I was like, oh, well, there's the gotcha again. But the reality is, I went online and did the little $10,000 grant thing, and it took 15 minutes, right? I don't know. Somebody must type really, really slow if it takes them 2.5 hours, or there's a lot of questions that I answered right to that avoided a bunch of the extra questions. But either way, talk with your financial advisors, your partners, the folks that you rely on for guidance in this space. I was initially pushing back really hard that we got this, we can we got a pretty good runway, but the reality is we don't know the date certain, the end of this, when this is going to wrap up and how this is going to impact. I want to make sure that my team has got the ability to have a great company to come back to, and so we got to make smart decisions, guys. So with that, again, thank you so much, Laura, for giving us the details on that. And again, thank you, Randy. I do want to open this up to Benny Santaroma. He's a great long-term friend of GMA, and I'd love to get your insights and input on what these business owners and leaders might need to be thinking about or doing in preparation.
Sure. Thank you, and good morning, everyone. I'm Benny Santaroma. I'm a business consultant with the University of Georgia Small Business Development Center. As you probably know, we provide business consulting services at no charge to our clients. Now, I do have, don't let my background fool you. That's a virtual background. So we are self-isolating with my wife here, so we're safe. I do have some details to share with you on your screens, and to build further on what Laura and Randy have mentioned about the CARES Act, and not only for manufacturing concerns per se, but also for any business that or are personally involved in. This might be a pretty attractive set of information. So basically, the CARES Act has thrown a lifesaver to businesses. And as has been mentioned by Jason and others during this call, it seems like it's too good to be true, but really the spirit of the CARES Act. And I read through the actual CARES Act drafted by Congress, and I was astounded at the level of detail that they put in there to make this actually a law. So having said that, I'll go ahead and share my screen. And I do have a matrix that I think is pretty fairly easy to understand. Do you see my screen there with the
yeah, that's perfect.
With the 4 columns? Okay. So the 3 programs that have been mentioned are what we call EIDL or EIDL, and then there's the EIDL Advance, what Jason has mentioned about the $10,000 grant, and the PPP, as we call it, the Paycheck Protection Program. So I'll go over some highlights, just some highlights. There's a lot of detail here, and I will share this document with everyone on this call, and maybe through Jason, and he can distribute it to all of you. So yeah, the PPP program is quite it's very good. It's As been mentioned by Laura, it is, the loan amount is up to 2.5 times of of a company's average monthly payroll. So that's 2.5 times. And if you can take note that there is a limit on the, say, the executives or people who are earning $100,000 and more, so that would not be included in the computation. Now, the Triple P program is, as opposed to the EIDL program, is implemented by a list of banks that are partners of SBA. And I will share that list as well. And it's about 2 to 3 pages long. Maybe there's about 50, 60 banks who are participating in this program. So this is a program that is implemented by SBA through the banking system, right? Okay, I'll fast forward to the forgiveness feature of the Triple P. So up to 100% is actually forgivable. And what is not mentioned here is that this is a non-recourse loan, meaning if the business defaults on the loan, SBA will not try and collect from that business. So anyway, the forgiveness element is great. It's up to 8 weeks for as long as the business maintains up to 75% of the pay of the of employees for an 8-week period. Then that the equivalent amount is forgiven, right? Now, if there's a non-forgiven portion, that's up to 4% interest for up to 10 years, but the first 2 years is at 0.5% per year interest. So very, I would say it's a pretty generous loan program if it needs to go there, meaning if it's not forgiven. So that would be a 10-year term and a 2-year portion at 0.5%. Collateral is waived. Initially, this program, and it was rolled out about 2 weeks ago, there was a collateral requirement, but that has been waived. So there have been further streamlining and polishing on this program and the other programs as well. I think there's a realization that, as Jason has mentioned, this is a pretty deep situation that we're in. So really the government, in my opinion, has thrown out this lifesaver with almost, it's almost like, a grant in many respects, but has put in some nominal controls and balances just to make sure that the goals are achieved. Anyway, so collateral is waived on the Triple P. Personal guarantees of the owners is waived as well. Let's see, there was a no credit elsewhere requirement initially. What that means is if a company has been denied a loan by any other bank, then SBA Triple P program would be the last recourse. But no, that has been waived. So whether a business has been is credit worthy or not, go and apply, for the Triple P. So that's a good feature. So I'm just going to, again, to the highlighted features of these programs. Okay, so that would be it for Triple P. But before leaving the topic, if your companies or companies that you work for or companies that you know of are interested with the Triple P, please ask them to apply on or before June 30. But the sooner the better, because there's a chance that the funds allocated would run out. And based on our observations, because we do help a good number of businesses, with these programs, there's a deluge of applications. So please apply ASAP for the Triple P. Now for the EIDL program, as Jason mentioned, again, I would encourage, or please encourage the companies that you work with or your own businesses, go ahead and go to just Google SBA EIDL, and it'll take you to the SBA site. click on the application link. In fact, someone on the chat provided that link, and thank you for that. But go to that link. It's a 15-minute application process, and there's a box at the end of the application process that asks, would you like to take advantage of the $10,000 cash advance? You click that, and the promise, or the official promise, is 3 days. You should get it in your deposited directly into your bank account, because you will be providing your bank account routing number and account numbers. So so the promise is 3 days, but just get ready for 1 week before it gets deposited. Now, while the PPP program is good for up to 10 million per borrower, the EIDL is good up to 2 million, but it has a payment term of 30 years, whereas the PPP has a payment term of 10 years. So the basic thing to remember here is that the PPP is, if you can isolate, if your company is interested in applying for both programs, because this loan programs will be combined if you apply for both. If your business applies for both, this will be combined under a refinancing scheme by SBA into one loan. So if that is the kind of the ultimate outcome of the application, then isolate PPP as really just for payroll, and isolate EIDL for the other operating expenses. So EIDL, put in there your rent or mortgage, utilities, interest on debt the business has incurred, your accounts payable, some bills that could have been paid had the disaster not occurred. So those are the expense items. We call them the regular operating expense items that would be declared under EIDL. So again, the message that I'd like to convey is, if your business wants to apply for both, do the PPP just for the payroll, and EIDL for the other non-payroll operating expenses. So again, EIDL is not a forgivable loan. However, let's see. Okay, now that's it. Yeah, it's a non-forgivable loan, but it's a 30-year loan. So that has positive implications on cash flow. So stretched out over 30 years, the amount monthly installments could be good for that. It would be kind, to that business, so to speak. So that's it for my part of the call today. And again, I can send this to Jason for distribution to everyone.
Yeah, we'll definitely share that. Benny, that was fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing that. I have a couple questions that have popped up through previous conversations. I know that there are some companies that have, so the state has provided an update to the temporary unemployment applications for companies, and a lot of companies have had to, have already pulled the trigger and applied for temporary unemployment for their employees. How does that relate or connect to the PPP? Because it looked like on some of the stuff that we've seen, this is to cover payroll. So if they've been on unemployment for a couple of weeks, or should they, kind of cancel that unemployment application to be able to qualify for PPP? So that's one question. Do you have any guidance on that, what that looks like yet? I mean, so if companies, the temporary unemployment, of course, is not terminating employees, it's just putting them on a temporary hold. And then from what we've been also seeing is that there's a up to $600 addition per person for unemployment coming from the federal, going on top of the state. So what's the combination there, and how would that work? How would those work in concert or not? Ben, can't hear you.
Yeah, well, there's there are fine print on. There's a fine print on that, and I'll get back to you on a more definitive response. But I think if I recall correctly, if there's a rehire of those employees, then they can get on that payroll that's subject under the payroll or paycheck protection program. But
Okay.
let me get back to you that for a more definite.
Yeah, there's been a fair
answer.
amount of confusion on that. I've got
Yeah.
that question probably a dozen times. Is like, we were given guidance that you need to file unemployment immediately to get your folks on set up on unemployment, so that at least they'll have something coming in. But once they got that teed up, then it was like, oh well, this 3P program came out, and it's qualified to pay payroll, but it's only for people that are gainfully full-time employed. So it's sort of it's contradictory. So if you could help us get some clarity on that, that would mean a ton. Well,
Sure.
another thing that came up was, when they initially adopted this, or they were putting this in place, some financial directors were reading early copies of this, and at the time they were saying that if you had available credit somewhere else, you didn't qualify for that. So if you were managing your money well and you had a good line of credit that you hadn't tapped into, you had to deplete that. And some of the advisors, so I caution people to listen to the folks that are advising you, and make sure that the information that they're getting is current and as concrete as we can get it before you make any decisions, because there have been a lot of guidance that folks are saying clean out your line of credit so that then you could then apply for these programs. And fortunately, the Congress waived that, so I'm real tickled to see that. But again, with that, all I'm saying is just make sure that you listen to the qualify the folks that you're listening to and getting information from. And
I'm listing down those questions, Jason, so I can.
Okay.
So that's unused credit lines,
Right.
Right. And the first question was on employees on,
Temporary
on unemployment insurance.
Yeah.
Can they be? How can they be qualified? Okay.
Okay. And then the third.
Also,
Go ahead.
I don't know if you're going to cover this, but I wanted to just quickly mention that the IRS, Department of Labor, and the Treasury have gotten together to provide an incentive, for businesses who, those employees of those businesses that have to work from home and cannot really work from home because by the nature of their work, like if they're operating machines, so they can't really work from home, right? So that employer or business can pay time off, those employees, and then the IRS will reimburse that business through tax credits.
Okay.
And how that works is if the business would not have to remit like payroll taxes, withheld taxes to the government, to IRS, and get so that they can get reimbursed indirectly through that manner. Now, if their actual expenses exceed are in excess, they can actually ask for a refund from the IRS as well. So
Okay.
the question is, would that be double dipping with the PPP program or the Paycheck Protection Program? No, because during the calculation of the forgiveness element or feature of the PPP, those amounts, the tax credits, would be backed out from the computation. So,
Okay. Perfect.
but then it provides an incentive for businesses to keep their employees employed and would not have to lay them off. So,
Okay.
just wanted to throw that in.
All right. That sounds great. One other question that's popped up is, who qualifies to be able to get this, the $10,000 grant? I mean, do they have to, what kind of companies? I was on a call with the Georgia Chamber of Commerce, and they were like, they really encourage people to go ahead and pull the trigger, get on SBA, request that grant immediately. And somebody asked, well, how did the PPP work with 1099 contractors? And the response was, if it's a 1099 contractor, if you're a solo entrepreneur or consultant or whatever, then you qualify for the grant. So if you're a 1099 contractor, I mean, so that was pretty interesting that they really pushed folks that, 1099 contract folks don't have the option to qualify under PPP. So that clears that. But if they're a 1099, in turn, they own their own business. So do you know if there's any base level qualifications? I mean, do you just have to have a federal ID number and, a business? Do you know if there's any qualifications to get started in that for smaller businesses or maybe startup companies? I mean, because that's, questions that have been popping up.
I don't know if Laura or Randy would like to respond there, because I can respond as well. So, do you have some inputs there, Laura or Randy?
Certainly I didn't want to, I was waiting to see if you were going to say something.
Yeah.
So many, we're all just sitting here
Hot
waiting.
potato, baby, hot potato.
Yeah, but yeah, there's some set rules out there for, the size of companies, and there's a control aspect as well too, for when companies are looking at, you're talking about affiliates that all kind of work together. You want to make sure to look at those full-time equivalents, as they're calling it, for application. But yeah, for sole proprietors, they have been I've been encouraging them to go ahead and apply for the grant in there. There is something for companies that are, more sizable than just a sole proprietor. You do want to check and make sure you're considering your 1099 people, those that are giving you services. Say like you have somebody that you're paying 1099 to do marketing services for you. So you can pick them up in your calculations in there. So if they're a 1099 that way, that's a service like that. Versus someone that you paid to come paint your office building, so to speak.
Okay.
So those are people that are actively engaging and supporting the operations of the business. So make sure you pick those up in your calculation there. But Benny, you got some other insights there you'd like to share as well too? I don't want to steal all the thunder.
Sure, because I was stealing all the thunder, so I wanted to give the floor to you. But yeah, there is language that's been published, I believe from SBA, that includes sole proprietors, because independent contractors are sole proprietors, right? They own their own business in effect, whether they're registered as a one-member LLC or a sole proprietor. It would appear that based on the information of SBA, that they would qualify under the PPP or Paycheck Protection Program. Mm-hmm. So they can apply for that. And also just a bit of detail on the IRS treatment of LLCs. Let's say once an LLC becomes a two-member LLC, then those two members are required to declare themselves as W-2s. So then effectively they become employees really of their own companies, whereas a single-member LLC takes compensation from the profits of the business, like distributions or draws from the business, and so technically they're not really salaries or a paycheck, really. Okay. So I guess the bottom line is, if any of you or anyone you know is an independent contractor or sole proprietor, go ahead and apply, for the PPP program. And pretty obviously apply for the EIDL program, because there's the $10,000. It's labeled as an advance, cash advance, but really there was, again, on the CARES Act itself, that was ratified by the president and drafted by Congress. It says there's language that says this is under no circumstances, I'm paraphrasing it, need to be repaid by the business owner. So it's really a grant. So right. Yeah. So that's my 2 cents on that.
Fantastic. I really
Jason,
appreciate that. Yes.
A couple of other things regarding those who are self-employed or may work by contract. If you or those you know are independent contractors, work on a 1099, file under a Schedule C or your own as a sole proprietor, in the unemployment insurance section of the CARES Act, there is a section that refers to pandemic unemployment insurance.
Okay.
And that section is designed specifically for those who don't have a traditional paycheck, who might work by 1099, and it provides up to 39 weeks of unemployment insurance for those 1099 contractors. And this legislation, it's like much federal legislation. It's federally funded but state administered, and so for those who might be independent contractors or work on 1099s, they do have in this up to 39 weeks of unemployment insurance. They will need to connect with the Department of Labor, and we have a couple of Department of Labor 1 or 2 page summaries that we'll be glad to send to you, Jason, for distribution if you'd like, that talk about how to do that. And if you or those you know have employees that you've needed to lay off as a result of the changes that are taking place, then one of the opportunities that you have is to help file the unemployment insurance claims for them, start the partial claims process. That way the DOL knows, in fact, that they have been laid off or unemployed, and it will help speed that process for them, for the employees.
Now, Randy, that's mandatory, right, for the employer to file that on behalf of the employees if it's related to temporary unemployment. Like, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Perfect. Well, guys, this has been, man, this is fantastic. Who else has got some questions? I know I had a bazillion of them, so I'll open up the floor. Who else has got any questions? All right. Randy, we had somebody on the Superstar join us on your call. I really appreciate seeing that your buddy come in and pop in, and she ducked right back out, or they ducked back out. So that was kind of cool. I'll enjoying kind of some of these Zoom things. All right, anybody else got any questions? Mr. Bo?
Hey, no, I don't have any questions. I'm writing notes feverishly because I run a lot with independent contractors, so this information has been invaluable. And as much as possible, if you guys can send the forms out, certainly it will help me protect some of my teammates for sure.
Okay, perfect. Well, we will archive this call. So it takes, just so you guys kind of get a feel, it takes about an hour for Zoom to save all of the information, and then we got to convert it and make a few tweaks and then put it up on YouTube. But it's also going to be on our webpage at Manufacturing News Network. If you scroll down, if you go to manufacturingnewsnetwork.com, that takes you right to the page, and scroll down towards the bottom of the page. You'll be able to see a list of all the calls that we've done, the conference calls, the roundtables. We've done some really great interviews as well. So I'd encourage you to kind of use that as a resource. There is also a resources tab under the news. So under news, there's resources. We're going to be adding to that today. That's one of the things we're going to be putting a few things in. We will put the links to the forms that we're talking about. Benny, that was a fantastic matrix that you shared. That's the cleanest one I've seen so far, and I've seen probably 100 of them. So hats off to you wherever you got that, or if you created it. Again, appreciate you bringing that to the table, because I need clarity. I need it super simple for Jason. So
yeah, if I may just quickly interject. No, actually, the governor camp has tasked my organization to work hand in hand with the county government, rather with the state government, to help businesses. So we've been really working hard at putting this information together.
All right. Well, you guys are getting it done. So thank you so much. Well,
Sure.
Like I said, we'll include the link to that in both the show notes, but also in the Manufacturing News Network. Under there, there's a resources tab. I will say this, and I'm just going to throw this out as a blanket statement. If you're going to be doing a bunch of these Zoom calls and you're going to be speaking on them, a couple things that I included. A couple of the folks had asked, what are we using for tools? If you go under Georgia Manufacturing Alliance and just go to the regular resources tab and scroll down just a little bit, you'll see I think it's resource equipment or something. But it lists, we put together, and I actually took a couple of pictures of the inside of my office to see kind of how I'm set up. I got a big monitor mounted on the wall, and I've got a Logitech camera. I wish I could turn it all around so you could see all the bits and pieces, but I've got some pictures of it and links to some of the tools that we use. And again, as we progress through this, the more that we're going to spend time on these Zoom calls. Your appearance does matter. Right now, everybody got a freebie on this thing. But if you're going to be leading these calls and that sort of thing, we would encourage you to take some time to figure out what your background looks like, what your lighting looks like, what the sound looks like. I mean, I love this thing right here. This is my favorite toy yet. So this is a Blue Yeti mic, and it makes a huge difference for me. I'm kind of a sound geek, but yes.
May I do a 15-second promo?
Sure. Yes, please.
All right. Thank you. For those of you who are continuing to learn about the CARES Act, tomorrow afternoon, 1:30 p.m. Eastern,
Yes.
1-hour webinar. It's a CARES Act benefits and action steps for individuals and businesses. And we will be sending and posting, we'll be posting a link to LinkedIn and on Facebook, personal Facebook page, as well as pushing out that link to everyone on our database.
Okay.
So,
And we'll include a link to that in the show notes. Again, it'll take about an hour and a half to get the show notes up with all the links and all that. So I really do appreciate it. So we're going to do one other quick thing. I know there's a bazillion ways I could do this, but I'm going to do it the old school way. So one of the things we always do is we smile and wave at all of our events. Smile and wave. So smile. Everybody smile. Everybody smile. Time out. Smile and wave one more time. Up. Perfect. That's beautiful. I will post this on LinkedIn, and our goal again is to continue to help support and grow manufacturing in the state of Georgia through all the tools that we've got available. I know Laura, and I know you did a really great call yesterday, and any information that you can share with us on documentation. And I know Randy, you're working through that as well. I'm sure you'll share that in your show notes following your call tomorrow. Benny, I'm looking forward to getting the data from you. But we're going to post this. We want to make sure that we continue to serve the manufacturing community as best we can in these trying times. So we're going to archive this. We'll save it. We're going to post this, that image that I just took. We're going to post that on LinkedIn and on Facebook. I'm going to try to tag you. If you're not connected to me on LinkedIn, reach out to me. Make sure we get connected. I'll mention you in one of the comments. But we want to share this resource for as many folks as can benefit from it. We're working hard trying to figure out what works and what you need. If there are topics that we have not covered that you'd like to get covered in more detail, please let me know. If you'll either put that in the show notes or, comment on it. And usually we go around the room and we ask everybody what their favorite part is. And we don't quite have time to get all that done today, but we would like you to, in the LinkedIn or the Facebook post from, wrap up from this call, if you would share what your favorite part about today was. What's your takeaway? What was the thing that you enjoyed most or you got the most out of this call, so that other people can benefit from this as well. So with that being said, I want to open it up. Benny, Randy, Laura, you got anything else, final words you'd like to add before we wrap this call up?
anything like that? No.
Sorry, go ahead, please.
No, I've got nothing to add. Nothing outperforms good habits.
I love it. Sweet. Mr. Benny?
Oh, well, I wanted to add that I'll send another document for your toolbox that's entitled, Conquering a Business Crisis.
Mm-hmm.
So we put together that a trifold on that, but it's in digital form. So I'll forward that to you as well, for distribution and access by your members. So, but anyway, having said that, thank you everyone for the call today. And again, we provide our consulting services at no charge to business owners. So you can contact me through Jason or maybe just Google me, and you can. I'll be happy to help. Thank you.
We'll put a link in the LinkedIn notes as well. All right. Sure. Thanks, Benny. I appreciate you hopping on the call with us. Ms. Laura.
Yes. Well, as Benny said, I think and Randy as well too, there's a lot of information out there, and really my goal is to try and get people answers, not only just from what's happening individually to you, but also your business and other strategies and things that are available now, actually additionally, that we didn't have a chance to touch on the call, for your business to take advantage of, NOL carrybacks, other types of credits and things. So certainly a lot of things out there. Just take a deep breath, and reach out to one of us. We will be happy to help and listen. I think we've probably heard it all, or just about. And so don't be afraid to do that, because that's what we're here for, is to hopefully give you a little bit of peace of mind and help you to sleep and know which direction you need to go in.
Yeah, beautiful. I really appreciate that, Lauren. And as we wrap all these calls up, guys, we got some tough times ahead. Obviously, we're not out of the tough spots yet. We got some, based on all the news that we've been bombarded with. There's, it's going to get worse before it gets better. But I do want
I wanted to chime in real quick. I wanted to remind everybody the event sheet on our website. Don't forget to go on there and look at the Fun Friday.
Yes.
I thought last Friday was very fun, so I would like for you guys to jump in on that call, just kind of recap the week and kind of just, breathe a little bit from all this new normal that we're going through. So Fridays at 4, that's where it's at.
The more the merrier. Make sure you plug in. It's a BYOB if you want to. If you can bring a bottle of water, that's fine. But anything else is fair game as well. But let's remember to make sure that we continue to pray for our elected leaders that are doing a great job, doing everything that they can do. You may not agree with everything, but they're doing all they know to do, and so keep those guys and gals in your prayers, and continue to pray for the country. We got a great opportunity to see how we work together as a community and build new relationships through this. And there's some folks that don't have this, and reach out to them. There's some people that are kind of isolated, and some of these folks might be going through some really tough times, and you need to be a resource that they can call out to, and we're here for you. If there's anything, if you just want to call up and chat, hey, we're all about it. You just let us know how we can serve you in any way. We are going to pull through this. We're going to pull through it together as a community, and I'm excited to see what's on the other side. Thank you all for your time. It's been another great day at GMA. And with that, we're going to sign off, guys. We'll see you on the next call. Thanks, guys. See you.
Thanks all. Take care.